Hey, welcome. Glad to see that you could be here. This is Melanie Wood with Coldwell Banker Realty in Severna Park. And I have with me Betsie Russell from Touchstone Title. And we're going to tell you a little bit about, some of the faux pas and things that are being overlooked during the COVID time for the buyer. And it's a very important topic. So I wanted to share that with you today. And Betsy's going to, go into a little bit of detail, but there's so much more behind it. So we're going to give you her name and number so you can reach out to her after this and get more information pertaining to your situation, or just give me a call. So, Betsy, first question. You actually provided these topics to me, and I thought that they were very important as a buyer's agent and even as a seller listing agent. But why is it important for a buyer to know if there are any permits that are open or violations on a property?
Because violations run with the property, and very few people understand that title insurance does not cover building violations, it does not cover critical area violations, it does not cover forest conservation easements, it does not even cover riparian rights. And so it's very important that the title insurance agent that you work with, the actual person that you understands the entire chain of title, but also discloses to you as a buyer what the exceptions are going to be in the title insurance policy.
Right.
Meaning what's not covered, which gives you
Agreed.
which gives you as a buyer's agent the ability to resolve the problem prior to settlement.
Right.
And we can research open permits in Arundel County. Most of them are up to the seller to clear up the open permits or close them out, which requires contacting an inspector at Planning and Code Enforcement to come out and review the violation or close out the permit, one or the other. But it's really important to understand, for example, forest conservation easements, these are only on non-critical area properties. Not only do you have to buy back the easement if it has been tampered with, you have to restore the easement either by replanting all of the trees
That's very costly.
that were illegally removed. You have to do a boundary survey of the property, and you have to re-record the record plat of the subdivision.
Oh, wow.
So
That's
not only is it
complicated.
$1.75 a square foot, it's not just the fee. And most agents don't know that, and they'll say, oh, you can buy it back for $1.75 a square foot. But no, it's up to the planning and zoning officer, even whether you have the ability to buy back a forest conservation easement or not.
Right.
And in the critical area, it's especially important because you cannot buy back the forest conservation easements at all.
Interesting. So what if this came up on a property that I was selling, or actually I was representing the buyer, and a permit had been opened, and there was an addition put on, and there was a violation and a stop work order, and it actually got built, and it was all on the permit, and nothing was done about it. And so you had recommended to me to go and have a contractor reopen and recreate the permits, and that worked out beautifully. But for a buyer who does not have that advice, what would they have to do after they purchase the house?
Unfortunately, after they purchase the house, they would be stuck, and this is really important. That's why if you have a good buyer's agent, and it's really important to have one that is familiar with it, be able to research open permits as part of due diligence.
Right.
Question right in the beginning whether any work done on the house was done with building permits and if they were closed out.
Right.
Because our disclosure disclaimer sheet, most people, it's up to the buyer to do the entire due diligence.
True.
And during COVID, it's really important that because planning and code enforcement is just taking telephone numbers, that we be able to get an email, and I believe I've provided you with an email list.
Yes, and I have that list that I can share with folks.
And I have
Which is
a
very
list as
good.
well.
Right, so we're
So
happy to share that.
It's really, really important that we get these permits closed out.
Right.
And in our contracts, it says good and marketable title. And you have marketable title, which people don't understand, but you don't want to have to, for example, remove part of an addition that's been built illegally. You don't want to pay the fines involved. But I can say this, Anne Arundel County will work with you on.
That's good to know.
They will work with you on these problems, but they always say buyer beware, and they always say my realtor told me, and they don't want you to just listen to your realtor.
Sure.
So
Right.
part of it is researching together.
Yes, and agreed. So it's a teamwork effort. You've helped me out quite a bit over the years, and it's that communication with the county, communication with contractors, the sellers, the buyers, and both agents is very, very important. So that's great. So another thing that you've actually said that has come up quite a bit, especially during the COVID time, but it seems to always come up, are piers. We have so much water. Our piers, slips, docks, riparian rights. You'd mentioned that in your last answer. So what's going on in the county now? You had mentioned something about Cape St. Clair.
Well, recently, if you read an article in the paper, in Cape St. Clair, a buyer, actually with a permit from Anne Arundel County, built a very large pier in Cape St. Clair. And the county issued the permit, and they issued at the same time a permit to the Cape St. Clair Community Association to restore their community area. Now understand, Cape St. Clair, a lot of the community-owned waterfront is underwater. And typically, if the Community Association water is under waterfront, then you would get riparian rights. But again, riparian rights are not covered by title insurance. And in the case in Cape St. Clair, and this was very interesting, the sellers in 2006 had a joint agreement with Cape St. Clair not to build anything.
That's key.
That's
you got to
key.
do that research.
That they would not build anything without the approval of Cape St. Clair, and the Cape St. Clair Community Association retained the riparian rights. So very important. It was a settlement in 2019, I believe, but the agreement was done in 2006. And again, these agreements are exceptions to title insurance, Melanie, which is why you want to work with people that you can call up and say, are there any exceptions that I should know about that have not been disclosed, that are on record? Can you please look at the title work and print it out for me?
And I will say that a lot of buyers don't even look at their title insurance because they don't understand it. They're just told that it's very good to have. They're not quite sure what it does for them, but it really covers them quite a bit. But you do need to know what it covers and what it doesn't. Very important. So the other thing, you touched on the forest conservation, but what's come up, I personally have a private road maintenance agreement in front of my house. I'm working on another one right now for another buyer, and another easement last month. They come up quite often, whether it's a use of a well or a private road or just access. So can you tell us a little bit of why it's important to even know what a road maintenance agreement is? What does it do?
Well, first of all, most lenders today require a road maintenance agreement to make a loan on property. And you will find out as soon as we issue what's called our title insurance commitment to the lender, and then you will be scrambling. So I always have people if it's on a private road, the first question I have them do is go to the sellers and say, do you have a private road maintenance agreement? One of the top agents in the county who sold a piece of property several years ago advised the clients that they did not need a road maintenance agreement. Now, several years later, now that another parcel has been subdivided on the property, there's construction going across the road without a road maintenance agreement. So if you had a road maintenance agreement and it stated that any party doing any damage to the road was responsible for repairing the damage that they had done. For example, you're doing an addition to your house, you have several parties sharing, say 5 people on the road, and it says we're going to be contributing for snow removal, we're going to be contributing for repaving the road.
Right, I was going to say just
potholes,
normal maintenance. Sure.
But again, if you're doing an addition on your home, or there's new homes being built on the road,
right.
You want to make sure that there's a road maintenance agreement, because any damage done to the road, you want the responsible party to take care of it singularly, instead of, and I'm not an attorney, having to file civilly when they've done damage to your road.
Right. Like a dump truck. I heard a dump truck has come down the road and messed it up, or even the garbage truck comes down the road, and that's a heavy truck, and it's done damage, and then the private parties are really upset saying, well, I didn't, I only used 10 feet of the road, so I don't want to pay for it, and there's just arguments that happen. So it's very nice to have all that laid out ahead of time and everyone in agreement.
Well, the problem is there's also parking issues on private roads. Private roads tend to be smaller than your average road, or they would have been dedicated to the county. So with these private roads, people have parties, people go over and drive over people's lawns, they make a big mess. And so even if there is a road maintenance agreement, what people don't understand is every party on the private road has to agree to the private road maintenance agreement. You just can't do a sole agreement. But if it is explained properly to all of the parties that are at the table, that this is a benefit to you in the long run.
Sure.
I mean, even if you're deeding the property to your kids, which happens a lot in Anne Arundel County, and we have a lot of old private, especially to the water, roads that share driveways, that share private roads, and nothing has ever been done. And in order to expand your house, in order to build a new house, all of that, you're going to need a private road maintenance agreement.
Yeah.
And
so just like you said, the lender's requiring it more often than not, and I've found that to be the case too. And we're trying to, for one of my buyers now, trying to work all that out before the settlement, because I know that it's going to come up. The lender wants a copy of it, so that's why we're trying to work things out, because and another time they might 3-4 days before settlement go, oh, wait a minute, we need that. That's no fun, but it's very important in the sense that they know who's responsible for it. They know when they move into that house, they're responsible for a certain portion of that, whatever that road is.
The first thing that you should ask when you're taking a listing, especially if you are on a private road, is, does there exist a private road maintenance agreement? And your seller is most likely the person to be able to get all parties to agree to signing a road maintenance agreement. And I went around on one subdivision with an agent probably 18 years ago, and we had to get 20 signatures, and I was the notary on each signature to go around meeting each person at the time they could meet to get their signature on the road maintenance agreement. And it was a very simple one. It just said that all parties agreed to pay into a community fund to be held by an association. So they
Mhm.
developed an LLC that was basically an association to pay into a road maintenance agreement.
Okay.
Now, depending on what you want, you can have a community meeting of all of the parties and figure out what they are willing to agree or not agree. If you are the seller, you can bring in an attorney that will sit in and take notes as to what people will agree to
Right.
or not to agree. But it's always beneficial to have a road maintenance agreement. And nowadays, you are absolutely right. The listing agent never has done anything about getting a road maintenance agreement done. The buyer's agent finds out at the last minute
Yeah.
that there is no road maintenance agreement.
That's necessary.
And unless you put in, and I am not an attorney again, if it's not in the contract that there is a road maintenance agreement when there is none, then your buyers are up in the air again.
Right. Right.
So
Right.
road maintenance agreements, very important.
Yeah, I agree, and it's one of the things as a buyer's agent, even if the seller disclosures say no private road agreement, you can't take that as it's not needed. It might not have one right at the moment, but that doesn't mean that the shared road should be overlooked. So it's up to the buyer's agent and the buyer to find that out and see what's best for the new buyer. So it gets a little bit more complicated, and so I'm really glad that you brought up these topics, because this is just the tip of the iceberg of all the different things, the nuances in selling property and buying property that an agent, it's very important for them to stay on top of. And it's so important to stay on top of what's going on in the county. Betsy's kind of our go-to for that, because she's just very entrenched with all those folks knowing what's going on and what's happening in Howard County and Anne Arundel County. And it's been just a fantastic resource for me personally. So I thank you for that. And so Betsie Russell, Touchstone Title, Melanie Wood, Coldwell Banker Realty. And thanks so much for watching this video, and we will certainly be glad to answer any questions. Just give me a call. I'm going to put down Betsy's cell phone number, and mine as well. If you have any questions, feel free to give us a call. Have a great day. Thank you.